Good morning, everybody. Peggy Berryhill here this morning, and you can see the fabulous Jeanne Jackson is right next to me. There we go. Now I can hear better. And we're having Mendonoma sightings today. Hey, Jeannie and I haven't been together here in person for a while,
Yep.
so it's
What did you
nice.
say your name was?
Good
Peggy.
question.
Peggy.
Good question. I don't know. We do know that Ms. Leanne Lindsay is in the background helping organize things. Well, that looks weird. So and getting ready for some fun this morning. Oh, well, I see her. She's still moving around there. We both say hi to you, Leanne. And let me turn Jeannie's mic up. All right. I only have one announcement aside from the weather. And of course, Jeannie can talk much more eloquently about the weather, but it's blue skies. It's warm today. I don't know about you, but we opened up our windows at the house early this morning and we're going to shut them down pretty quickly because it's supposed to be very warm, although inland has been amazingly warm.
Terrible.
Crazy. I think it was 112 in Phoenix
Oh,
yesterday or
no, no,
something.
no, no.
Yeah, I
Too hot.
know, too hot. I know. And when you're in Phoenix, it's like you're in an oven because
Hmm.
it's that dry heat.
Hmm.
I even saw a photo of somebody who was at Lake Mead and wearing those little thongs, those little slip on thongs, and
Hmm.
it melted.
Oh my gosh. That's
Yeah.
too hot.
Yeah, I'm with you. The only other announcement I have is this Saturday is Pride Day at Bower Park, and this is presented by Action Network. Saturday from 10 to 1. Everybody is welcome to come to Bower Park for Pride Day. And Mark Gross, our own father of KGUA writers, is going to have a KGUA writers pop up there because the topic for this Monday's KGUA writers is pride, either what gives you pride or someone who you're proud of, or, anyway, pride,
Hmm.
whatever it says to you. And Mark will have a pop up group, and he loves to do these pop up groups. He has had them at the Ayurvedics and a couple of other places, and
Hmm.
people love to join him.
Hmm.
And they do, Jeannie, I don't know if you're familiar with the show, but they do a little 10-minute free write. That's all you do. And, for someone like you who's a writer and
Hmm.
like me, I mean, we can do that, but we're used to being more constrained and not doing exactly a free write.
Hmm.
But the KGA Writer Show on Mondays is all about this 10-minute free write. Here's topic, sit down, let yourself go for 10 minutes, start the clock, stop. And that's it.
Hmm. Yep.
So that's what they're going to do.
That's great.
It is great. And we have, boy, that show is
It's
just about the
amazing.
most popular show we
Oh,
have.
after sightings, of course.
Well, of course. I mean, anything on Peggy's Place, but sightings, KGA writers, all of these shows, all of our regulars. So today, Jeanne Jackson back with me right here. And I don't need this right now. Well, I'm going to leave it there so I'll remember it. Leanne will remember. So, Jeannie, Mendonoma Sightings comes out is today.
Today's
See, I'm not,
Thursday.
yeah, I don't usually come on Thursdays except for you.
Oh, really? I didn't know.
Well, Lee and I have worked out a new schedule, and I do
Oh,
Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday
okay.
generally. But when it comes to Mendonoma sightings, we have to do it together.
Yeah, we're joined. No, I have heard Leanne recently, and I just thought you were on vacation.
No, well, sort of. I mean, I get 4 days now, and
That's great.
that's really nice,
And Leanne has such a beautiful radio voice too.
doesn't she?
She's really good.
I agree. I agree. So, Jeannie, I had a question for you, and it's just gone. It's just gone. Doesn't matter. You can answer anything you want. You have, I suppose we should just get going. Jeannie has her new iPad here, and she's ready to go.
Well, what I do is I jot down the last 4 weeks of sightings, what I would like to highlight on your show. And I just give myself a jog of the memory with my iPad here. So I wanted to talk about the brown pelicans being on the move right now. And it's really fun this time of year. The juveniles have become strong enough to be able to fly on their migration northward. And the juveniles have just been seen this last week, and they have brown heads and white tummies, and the adults
Ah,
have white heads and dark tummies. So it's easy to tell them apart. Paul Brewer got a great photo. He has a nice bluff top home in Wallala, of a group of brown pelicans feeding. And they're so awesome to watch because they plunge dive with their beaks. And like the bald eagles will and ospreys will hunt with their talons, but the brown pelicans, they go beak first. So it's quite dramatic and kind of a little clumsy too on top of it. And there was a feeding frenzy in front of his house, and he got a very nice photo of 2 juveniles and several adults. So they are on the move, and this could be just the perfect time and perfect weather to see them as they fly by. And they also land in the Walala River to rest late in the day. And that's something that you can go and watch and laugh out loud. It's just a riot, because as graceful as they are and beautiful as they are in the air, when they come in for a landing, it's not, it's comical is what it is.
A lot of splashing.
And maybe a little bit of overrunning. And then they have to put their beak down to stop them from going underwater. It's really quite fun. So this is a great time of year for watching them.
I love watching the pelicans. I haven't seen them, so I got to get out and see them. And I'm going to try to remember that white heads are adults.
Correct.
That's all I need to remember.
Every year I have to remind myself which is which. So it's you're not the only one. Yeah, the brown heads for the young ones, and they're born off of the Santa Barbara coast, and it's they have a colony there, and so we'll see the first brown pelicans coming by. Those will be the non-breeding adults, and we've been seeing them for about a month. But now the big population move, and why they move, why they're headed north, it's for food. You know, they just have to disperse to find enough food this time of year.
Now, at what age do they stop breeding? Do you
I
know?
don't know.
I didn't know that they were non-breeding, but of
Well,
course it makes sense with all living things.
Right. And it's more usually when I say non-breeding, I'm thinking of the young ones, that they're not maybe last year's fledglings, that they're not old enough to breed.
Of course.
Like the ospreys, they don't breed until they're like 5 years old, and the bald eagles till they're fully mature. You know, when it comes to like Wisdom, the lace and albatross female who's still having babies, I haven't heard this year yet, but in her 60s. So I don't know. I don't know about the brown pelicans, when a female can no longer have chicks.
Wow, I think most women would be happy to say they wouldn't be interested in having a baby at 60.
No, Wisdom's, she's special.
I guess so.
Another thing to look for with the brown pelicans, there's a very opportunistic gull species that migrates with the brown pelicans, and they're called Heermans. It's HEERMANN' gulls, and they're a small, beautiful gull, but they're known to steal fish out of the mouth, out of the pouch of a brown pelican.
Isn't nature amazing? There's always, some opportunistic thing somewhere.
I hope that the gull does something for the brown pelicans. But I don't know that for a fact, but it'd be nice if it was a win-win. And I know there's gulls that we had a tropical fish come through right off of Anchor Bay, off of Fish Rocks, a mula. And they're
those great big things.
They're huge, and they have pink lips. I mean, they're just really amazing to see. And this fisherman got a photo of one underwater, and they will rise up. They have parasites on them, and there's some parasites that only the beak of a gull can get off of them. And so they'll rise to the surface, the gull gets free food, and the fish gets the parasites taken off. That's what I call a win-win.
There you go. Were you listening to Sherry Goforth?
I did.
Talking.
You said Ebby a lot of times.
Oh, why do I invite her? But she talked a lot about the importance of parasites on the whales.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that the lice are taking care of the wounds, and she had mentioned Chris from the Sea Ranch. It's Chris Peckle, who had photographed spectacles. I believe it was spectacles with just a mass of lice on the whale, and we believe that the whale had been injured by a propeller.
Oh, right.
So it was Chris Peckle who would photograph that. She's a really good photographer. And so Sherry talked about not too many gray whale sightings. We just did not see the normal mothers with their calves this year in great numbers. Part of it is we had so much wind. Oh my gosh, this had to be the windiest spring
It
ever.
sure felt like
It did. I mean, if I don't have any charts to prove it, but I've got the messed up hair to prove it. Uh, so it made for marine sightings very difficult because you depend on seeing the spout. And if the ocean's all riled up with wind, all you're seeing are whitecaps. So I guess we'll have to leave it to the people who observe them when they arrive up in the Arctic to see if are their numbers way down. Our sense is that they are. Scott and Tree have documented that they've been not as well fed this year, so we're concerned about that. But that said, and we mentioned Paul with the brown pelicans, he also saw gray whales this week.
Hmm.
So it was nice to hear. And this would be a really good time with this heat wave. There's no wind. And if there's something out there, you'll be able to see it.
Great. Well, that's a good thing to ask Scott and Tree to ask their friends in Washington
Yes.
State
What are they
also what
seeing?
they're seeing
Right.
as well. And I'm kind of looking forward to next year's wind photos. We'll have Jeannie in the wind and say, "Oh, look, it was gusts at 12 miles per hour," and Jeannie's hair will be here, and 20 miles per hour, and it'll be out to here. I think that'll be a nice
Oh,
chart.
that sounds great.
Nice new way of seeing things.
Oh boy, a new genie chart. Okay. I wanted to give you an update on the osprey nest that I get to watch through a spotting scope. It's about a half mile away. Well, I'm a half mile away from the ocean, and this particular nest is on, I believe it's on the east side of the highway. I've never spotted it from any other place than where I live. But it's been occupied for, I don't know, at least 10, 12 years now. And I saw the other day 2 chicks.
Oh, nice.
Yes, 2 scrawny little heads popped up, and it was fun to see. And yesterday I saw one of the chicks, and the chick had started to have feathers, so they're growing. The mother is still sticking on the nest. These mother ospreys are just so dedicated. It really puts me in awe to see them. And of course, the males are doing what they have to do, and that's bring food back for their mate and for the chicks. Once the chicks are big enough that they can't be attacked by your favorite birds, common ravens, then the female will start hunting for them also.
Now, do they also have to worry when those males are bringing fish or food back? Do they have ravens or other birds that are trying to take the food away? Or are they pretty big?
They're pretty big. I haven't seen the ravens trying to take food away from ospreys. I wouldn't be surprised. I've seen ravens attack the nest in numbers. They come in numbers, and they haven't been successful.
Good.
So I think the ospreys are an even or maybe better match for them. Where the ravens succeed, unfortunately, is with the Shire seabirds and shorebirds.
Small birds. Hey, if you just tuned in, this is Peggy's Place this morning, and the one and only Jeanne Jackson is here. And if you're new to the area, Jeanne does an column every Thursday in the ICO called what?
Mendonoma Sightings, Mendo for Mendocino, Noma for Sonoma.
And what's the content?
Well,
how does it get there?
People share with me their nature sightings. And when I started the column over 15 years ago, cell phones weren't around then, but now, of course, they are everywhere, ubiquitous. And so people mostly send me photos with their sightings, sometimes no, because you don't always get the shot. We could mention that beetle of yours, an iridescent beetle.
Ready this morning.
Always.
And here I am, so relaxed and unprepared. But she's referring to that. There was this amazing iridescent beetle. It was just, I don't know, this big and kind of an oval shape as opposed to big round or something.
Mm-hmm.
And it was on my car. And I grabbed my phone, and as soon as I got my phone out, it flew away, and I've never seen it again. And you said that happened to someone else recently.
It did. I met Rona downtown at Anchor Bay, and she was taking off, and all of a sudden she stops, gets out of her car with her phone camera. Same thing. I actually saw the beetle flying, so I saw the green iridescence. So I'm with you, Peggy. I missed most of the shots, but I feel very fortunate that people do share with me their very best photos.
Oh, they do. And you just go to Mendonoma Sightings, all one word, MendonomaSightings.com. And we have that up today in case we want to look at some of those things, because I think you're going to talk about them later. And Leanne's in action there. And in anyway, so if you were new, Mendonoma Sightings is a great place to go on the web, and of course, every Thursday to see what's happening.
That's right. It's fun to see because we have people who love wildflowers and people who love insects and people who are interested in intertidal zone. And so I'm interested in it all.
Right.
So I'm the receptacle of people's sightings, and it's a real fun and upbeat thing that we get to do here. So we're happy about it.
Did you do that your whole life? I've never asked you this question. You grew up in Berkeley.
I grew up in Berkeley, right? Yeah, I'm a Berkeley girl.
And I'm going to ask something. It has nothing to do with Mendonoma Sightings, but your father, didn't he found the Psychic Institute?
He did. He did.
Are you psychic?
Everybody's psychic.
Everybody's psychic.
Yeah, everybody's psychic. My dad was a terrific psychic. Yeah.
Should I be wearing an aluminum hat or something?
Maybe. You never know. We could do a show on that sometime. It's a totally different thing. Yeah. But yes, I grew up in Berkeley. We did a lot of camping. I didn't come from money, but I came from a lot of love. And we did just a tremendous amount of camping. So I think my love of nature started with that. But I just had the idea when we moved here, Rick and I, 25 years ago. There was an older woman who lived just to my south, Dottie Olson, and she moved here in the 1930s, so really early.
Wow, lucky her.
She told me that she could lie down on Highway 1 because there was no traffic. You know?
Don't do this at home, folks.
And she lived a little to the south of us, and she never lost her joy of seeing a whale. So with the gray whale migration, this was the start of sighting. She would call me if she saw one, so I could pick it up from my view. And then in the opposite migration, I would call her when I saw one. So it's sharing your nature sightings. And because most of us won't see this fabulous event, I have to tell you my fabulous event. I was on a wildflower walk that was led by Mary and Dard Hunter. And I won it at one of the events. And so it was Rick and I and some friends, and we were out on Byler Point looking at some beautiful wildflowers. And the others kind of went with Mary to look at something. And I gazed out off the point there, and right in front of my eyes, a gray whale spy hopped, totally silent. And so this is when the whale's head comes out of the ocean and it appears to look around, and then it as silently just went back under. And I almost disbelieved what I saw because nobody else saw it. Mm-hmm. So that's what I'm talking about with sightings. And I have that in my memory. I don't have a photo of it. So I do encourage people to send in your sightings, even if it's like Peggy with the beetle. She did not get the photo, but she has the memory.
I have the memory. And it's amazing when you think of how many tons these whales weigh, and they're silent when they do the spy hopping. It's amazing.
It is.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to be quiet here.
So we talked about, you had Sherry on the other day, and she at Go Forth EB, and she said that she saw 4 ospreys one day as she's doing her citizen science, and they were flying northward. And as they came back, they all came back with a fish. And I thought that was interesting. We know we have a colony of ospreys here. They come here because obviously they're also known as seahawks. They fish for fish. They dive for fish with their talons. And there are 3 nests on the hill where I live in Anchor Bay, and there are others in Wallala, and I'm sure there's some on the north end of Sea Ranch and Point Arena and so on, because we have these rivers, we have creeks that have fish in them, and we have the ocean. So it's location. Wow.
And isn't it wonderful we have fish in all of our creeks?
It really is wonderful. It really is. And our rivers, Wallala River is low, and it is a concern. I do want to talk about that a little later in the show.
Okay. I was going to mention foggers, but we'll wait till later.
Okay. And then Gailey Jackson, also, she got some great photos of an osprey fishing, which you can see on my Mendonoma Sightings site. It's really dramatic. And she photographed the osprey getting a steelhead out of the
Can
estuary.
we see that now? Is that something
possible? Yes.
Leanne, are you there? If you're there, I don't know, maybe you can move Jeannie's web page, and maybe you'll find the
Yeah,
osprey fishing.
but your listeners can also go to the website and see it.
Mhm.
It's really, she told me that she had often photographed ospreys with fish in their talons, but she had never seen them actually catch one. So, and I'm always heartened to hear that there's steelhead in the river. Yeah.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
these steelhead that are in the river now are trapped in luxury. They're trapped by the sandbar that closes the river off from the Pacific Ocean. And it's interesting to see them and to know that they're there is really good. So I wanted to tell your listeners, those that are here are going to be visiting here soon, that there is a small group of northwestern fence lizards at the Wallala post office. And it was Neil Silverman who told me about them, and darned if I didn't see them myself. So on the south end of the building, there's a door where you can get in the post office, and there are some rocks in the sun, and they're in that rock area. So check it out for yourself.
All right.
And then the other kind of interesting and fun news is that the female bald eagle has been seen for the first time in weeks. And Teresa and Rick Deniston have a home that they call Serendipity, and it overlooks the mouth of the river and the ocean. And they have a dead snag that when they built their home, their contractor talked them into keeping that. And they get the most wonderful sightings because they have a perching dead tree that the ospreys and bald eagles and turkey vultures and others like to perch in. So they're really happy that they took his advice and left that. It's not a danger to the house, so why not?
Why not?
So we think that the female bald eagle has been on a nest somewhere in the Wallala River watershed. The male had been seen carrying a fish up the river. So we're hopeful that we'll see a fledgling soon.
Cool.
Really cool.
Well, it's really funny though, when you mentioned the ravens and the turkey vultures, they really fight over space on those snags.
They
and it's
do,
pretty
yeah.
humorous because often it's just a tiny little spot and they'll be squawking at each other for that spot.
It's funny to watch. Connie King sent in a photo of one of the bald eagles on a branch, and next to it was a Steller's jay. And I thought, wow, that's one brave little Steller's
dangerously, huh?
Because I do have a photo that was sent in by the Denistons of a bald eagle eating a raven. They did take a raven, and it was interesting to see what I believe was the raven's mate was on the same branch. Yeah, it's kind of sometimes it's hard to see nature in action, but we know, we've talked about this before, that the ravens are abundant here and really out of balance with their numbers, and people feed them, and it allows them to not have to work hard for their food, and it allows them to have bigger and more chicks in their nest. So I would continue to ask people not to feed the ravens. Ravens are so smart. Oh my gosh. They're smart. They have memory. They plan. I think we talked about this last time. Michael Reinhardt got some photos of the pelagic cormorant. So this is a very shy seabird. They come to the bluffs to nest, and then they spend the rest of their time at sea. And they build their nest out of their own guano and little sticks of straw and so on. And they attach it with a guano to the sides of the bluffs. And as they were building their nest and laying their eggs, there was a raven watching. And I've learned that they have memory, and that raven was noting where the nests were. And we do know that they do steal the eggs and steal the chicks. So
I think they're psychic.
Everyone's psychic.
Oh, that's right. Everyone and everything is psychic. If you get a brain, all right.
Okay, let's see. Oh, and sometimes when you see a bird that's special to you, like the bald eagles, you can read into it a message. And Gail Eddy, she saw a bald eagle on Memorial Day, and she lost her husband Richard Hansen a little over a year ago, and she told me that was a message from him, and I think that's wonderful. I remember there was a woman who lived up in the Manchester area that told me that her name was Rose Davidian. Boy, I haven't heard from her in years. I have no idea where she is now, but her husband, as he was getting ready to pass over, told her that when she saw a hawk, that would be him.
Oh,
and so that was really special. And then Dave Presotto, Presotto, that's a beautiful name, found a pair of bald eagles at Manchester State Beach. And as he watched the female hunted for a fish, caught one, and proceeded to eat it from the head side first, and then flew off with the male still holding the rest of the fish. So he's got some really great photos, which I have shared. I believe I've shared them on my blog. And then Chris Skyhawk, he had a wonderful sighting last week or so at Dark Gulch, which is just north of Albion, so a little out of our area, but not really. I go all the way up to McCarricker, I say.
So it's just south of Mendocino.
Right. So north
the
of
river.
Albion. Yes. Yeah, the river. Right.
Yeah.
And he saw all together in the sky a bald eagle, two ospreys, and a red-tailed hawk. And they were all circling together. So it's kind of a peace on earth moment.
I guess so. Must have been a nice wind there.
Yeah.
And we should do a shout out to Chris because he's done so well. Youngish man who had a stroke, and he's doing great.
Right. I heard from him yesterday, and so we wish Chris the best. And he is a wonderful man.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a peregrine falcon nest in Mendocino County, north of Anchor Bay, and I was invited to see it. And I took Chris Peckle and my sister Linda Bostrick and her husband Mel Smith, and Chris took her photo, and she got a really nice photo of the mother feeding her three chicks. They look like little white puffballs. I'm sure they've evolved since then, but it was a beautiful day and on the bluff there. And as we were watching, the male flew in fast. You know, they're tremendously fast flyers, but when they're on the attack for a shorebird, they go after them at great speeds. But he was coming in with a bird in its talon, a black bird. I don't know what it was, if it was an actual blackbird, but the color was black. And the female flew off the nest, and none of us had cameras trained on this. It happened really fast. She flew underneath the male. She flipped over. The male dropped the bird into her talons, and then she grabbed the bird, flipped upright, and flew.
Wow, what a great sighting.
And the property owners that have been watching the peregrine nest for some years have never seen that either. So we were all watching with our mouths open. And then the female took the bird to a tree, and we saw all these feathers come off. She was taking all the feathers off, and then she flew to the nest with the carcass of the bird.
Wow, to work. That's amazing.
What an experience to see that.
Oh, absolutely. You know, that reminds me, I've seen a photo, and I don't know, it was on your sighting or somewhere else, where a baby bird fell out of a nest, and you see, I think it's maybe the mother hanging down, grabbing the baby, and underneath the father is pushing it up. You know,
they're so dedicated. I think it was on Facebook. I think someone posted it on my Facebook page, and it is really, really wonderful to see their devotion. So Bryce Hoffman, he photographed a bird that you don't get to see nesting because they nest in crevices and rocks, and that's the pigeon guillemots. But he said that he lives on the Sea Ranch, and he said that they come to the same sea cave area every year. So he got some photos of them coming and going. And these birds have red feet, and the inside of their mouths are red. It's like a bright orange red. You can't miss them. And they use their wings to swim underwater.
Yeah. How big are they?
Well, I would say they're, I don't know, about a foot tall, maybe if that. Yeah.
Interesting.
A slim bird.
We're gonna have to look it up.
Pigeon guillemots.
Why don't you remind people what time it is? Not what time, but
what time is fine. You want me to say?
I wanted you to say it.
Well, appearing on Peggy's Place today at KGUA 88.3 FM, live streaming and on YouTube is me, Jeanne Jackson of Mendonoma Sightings.
Excellent. Thank you.
I'm always on the third Thursday of every month. So I wanted to tell you and your listeners that American goldfinches have arrived in large numbers.
Oh.
They come in later. They migrate in later because they nest later than most of the small birds. So these birds, the males, are bright yellow in their breeding plumage with black markings, and they stay together in flocks. They're very communal. And Mike Reinhold, again, he photographed them and said he was seeing them in such large numbers, and he wondered if that was unusual. And I think it's not. I mean, I don't get the sense that it's unusual this year. And one year, Rick and I had this huge flock, I mean, hundreds of them, come to our Anchor Bay hilltop
Oh,
and land in the pines and firs and redwoods and chattered away, chittered away. And maybe they were having a convention or talking things over. I don't know, but it was magical. It was magical.
how cool. I only see them, one or two flying around the yard. That would be so
It
wonderful to
was.
see.
It was. And you can lure them. They're really found usually more closer to the ocean than they are inland. So Rick, as I said, Rick and I are a half mile back from the ocean, and I was told that I couldn't get them there, but obviously we did. And you can lure them by putting out a thistle feeder. But what I learned, and so you fill it with Niger seed, Niger. That's the thistle seeds that they like to eat. And that's the reason that they nest late, because the native thistles and the non-native thistles, their seeds are later in the spring or early summer. So they time their nesting to the timing of the thistle.
Wow, I love this.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jeannie. Boy, this is all birds today.
And the other thing about the goldfinches, I've got more. The other thing about the goldfinches, the feeder, is they're very particular about where they will come to a feeder. And Rick figured out if he hung it off of our deck so it swung freely, they could see it from the tree they were perched and fly directly to it. So I write about this in my column today. It comes out in the ICO. So if you don't attract them, move the feeder and to see if you can get them in another spot.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I'm still talking birds here. I wanted to
know it.
talk about the cliff swallows at the community center in Wallala. So when you turn in there on the north end of the community center, say to go to the Wallala market or to go to the post office, on the right there is, and so you're by the hotel, the right there is the eaves, and there had been a lot of attempted swallow nest. And I think somebody knocked a bunch down. And I wrote about it, and I told in my column, I try to do this every year, give them all the reasons why you want to encourage these swallows to build nests there and just deal with the little mess that the chicks make. So they stopped knocking them down, and there's dozens of nests now.
I think that's great. I don't understand. It's just for a short time. I love seeing the swallows.
Me too.
They're just wonderful. And I've never understood why people are so concerned, because it's a very short period of time.
I know. And I learned this from Rich Keene and Dean Schuler, who had a place on the Sea Ranch and always had, they had several species of swallows nest in their breezeway. And they tacked up cardboard boxes that they cut down. So the bottom and maybe an inch or two of the cardboard sides, tacked it up to underneath the nest so it catches any waste. Problem solved.
Exactly.
And there you have a bird that one bird eats like 100 insects a day.
Wow.
So if you're bothered by mosquitoes or flies, you want these birds.
We have a lot of mosquitoes out right now, even though it's not damp.
I know. It's funny. I heard one last night. I was sitting out on my deck in the dusk and whine. I heard the first mosquito of the year. And I had written that we hadn't had many mosquitoes so far this year. But then Amy Rug told me she came across a big mass of them up on the ridge as she was looking for rare plants. So so they're making the most of it. We did have that rain that came in last week, and that was really a blessing, wasn't it?
It was wonderful. And how much did we have?
Well, at my house, and I'm exposed on a rocky knoll, we got a total of 0.65 inches.
That's great.
It is. It dampened
really
everything down. It was nice. I wish we could get that maybe once every week.
Wouldn't it be wonderful?
Oh, it would be great. Let's put our order in.
All right.
So we have lots of dragonflies and damselflies now. I was invited yesterday to Terry Fardrescher's home, beautiful home in Wallala, and she has a pond, quite a large pond. It's not a lake, she says, but it's a big pond. And I got to watch multitudes of dragonflies yesterday.
Oh,
just these splashes of color. I saw flame dragonflies. That's the orange one. I saw the blue ones, the blue dancers. I saw ones I would have to look up with There's a 6-spotted and 8-spotted. And so anyway, I know that some of our really good photographers are coming on Sunday to photograph dragonflies at her
Nice.
place. So I love them. Craig Tooley described them as tiny helicopters. And I think that's a good description of them.
Well, you bet. And anybody who might go up to the Bower Park at any time
Perfect.
or to the Pride Day, you may see them up there.
That is a perfect place to go. If you're not good friends with Terry, you better go to a public place. And that would be the lake at Bower Park. I go there often and this time of year to see dragonflies there. And Craig had photographed a yellow one, which is a little rarer or less common. And it was turned out to be a bison snaketail.
Yeah,
a bison
snaketail. What a funny name.
And then Betsy Anderson had got a great photo of 2 damselflies mating. And I sent it to the expert, Kathy Bigg. She wrote the book on it, the identification book, and she couldn't identify which kinds they were because certain parts of the body were in use. And she needs to see the tail. So
what's the difference between a dragonfly and a damselfly?
Well, I used to think they're 2 different species. They're cousins of each other. And I think that just my thoughts of looking at the pictures, the damselflies are slimmer. I don't know exactly what.
Are they just as colorful? And
they're colorful. Some of them are just as colorful. I think the dragonfly males are more colorful than the damselflies. I'm not quite sure what else differentiates them. Peggy, I'll have to do some research into that.
I didn't realize that until you were talking about, and I had no idea that I could have been seeing something other than a dragonfly.
And silly me, I used to think damselflies were female dragonflies. I mean, I had to learn that they were different. They were cousins.
Sure, that would make sense.
We had several residents here and to our north were worried about the Anna's hummingbirds. They weren't seeing them. And Paul was one of them, and some on the Mendo bird list, the Yahoo list that people post to, mention their absence. But they've returned. And I get this every year, but I do need to pay attention when we notice the absence of something. It could be something is at work or something is a problem. And there could be a problem with them, but I think the problem was the wind. And so they tended to go away from the bluffs, because if you're a bird and you have to use your wings to get around, you're going to go to the place where there's the least wind resistance. So you would head inland to protected areas and stay away from the bluffs until the wind died down.
Now she's letting us know she really is a bird brain. Oh.
Yeah.
I would never think about that with birds. I mean, of course, the path of least resistance would make sense as well.
And then we were in nesting season for the hummingbirds, and the Anna's females, after the male impregnates her, he takes off. He's a flake. He's not like the ospreys that we're watching.
He's not going to work.
He's not going to help get that chick back in the nest that you talked about. So she does everything. She builds the nest. She nurtures the young. She feeds them. And so she's busy. She's busy. She's not flitting around and going to each individual flower. So they have returned. But I learned something from Fern Fideli up in the Point Arena area. She told me that she had been using TJ's, Trader Joe's organic sugar. And she found out recently that organic sugar has molasses in it. Molasses has iron, and our hummingbirds do not tolerate iron. So you should only use pure white sugar if you are making sugar water for hummingbirds.
Isn't that an irony, using highly processed pure white sugar as opposed to something more natural?
Right, because they're nectar feeders. They don't process iron like our human bodies do. So it's not good for them. Honey will kill them. So you really need to be careful. I actually Rick and I took down our 2 feeders because, there's the aspect of, are you keeping it clean enough? There's the aspect of the ones that are fighting over it. And we have so many plants and flowers that we have enough to feed the hummingbirds in our yard. Mm-hmm. So I took down the feeders, and they're still there, and they're feeding in the flowers as they're meant to.
Well, I think that's great, because hummingbirds are ferocious, territorial fighters. Mm-hmm. They're amazing.
So if you do feed them the so-called pure white sugar with no molasses, and so brown sugar obviously has a lot of molasses, and 4 cups of water to 1 cup of sugar. That's the right ratio. And clean your feeder often. We love our hummingbirds. We don't want to harm them, that's for sure. I took a walk with some neighbors, Nathan and Suzanne Gwynn, and I took them to Salal Creek. They had not seen it. And there's a lot of people who live here or visit here that don't know about this public access trail. And I've talked about it on your show before because I believe in sharing. And we had such a wonderful, magical time that afternoon. And as we were driving down our road, we saw Jackrabbit across the road.
Nice.
And then I took them to Wallala Point Regional Park. You can buy an annual pass. You can get it at the Four-Eyed Frog bookstore here in Wallala. You can also get it through the Sonoma County Parks. It's well worth the small amount of money to be able to use the park regularly. And you pull in past the pay station if you don't have a park pass and go to the first parking lot. And there on the left is the start of the trail. And it goes along the highway. It's funny, you can't really see the trail as you're driving down Highway 1. It goes down the highway by the golf course. Thank you. And after you pass the golf course, it heads west. And so we did that, and we're seeing beautiful wildflowers, just gorgeous wildflowers. It's just about 3 weeks ago. And as we got to the waterfall, it was still going. I don't know if it's still going now. We've had such dry weather, but it was still going beautifully. And a lot of us call it the grotto. And it's so magical as you come out. You're walking along the trail, and it's beautiful. It's beautiful. The azaleas were in bloom. The fragrance of the azaleas was just wonderful. Birds were singing, butterflies were fluttering.
It's a Disney movie.
It was a Disney moment. And we came to the waterfall, and it's dark and beautiful and mossy, and the rocks, and as the water tumbles over these rocks and trees. And then we went a little bit further, and I was in the lead, and Nathan was behind me, and he gave out an exclamation. He had seen a frog. And I turned around. Of course, I got my phone camera out, right? And as I was grabbing for my phone, there went this frog leaping across the trail into the water. Ooh. And it was the endangered California red-legged frog. I could see the red leg. Cool. It's really wonderful sighting. And so then we went to the edge of where the beach is. It's very rocky. It's difficult to access that beach, and you would have had to walk through some pretty deep water too. So we just stayed and watched and saw a few pelicans and gulls go by. And then on our way home, as we went up our road, there was a doe with 2 fawns, and they were still wet from the birth.
Just like
it was just
nice.
Amazing.
It really was your Disney moment. And you just to also help emphasize, when you park in that lower parking lot, you go south for people. You said left, but I just thought south would also help people.
Good. Yeah, directions are not my strong point. Craig and Tully and Rita Peck found these barred owls. We have barred owls that have been moving into our area from the eastern part of the United States, and the concern is that they will outcompete the very shy spotted and endangered owls. But they are here, and their call is something like "Who cooks for me?" or "Who looks for me?" Their call. Lynn Walton told me she was being driven crazy by this call, and I immediately knew it was barred owls. So they are here, and they had 2 owlets, 2 young owls. So they're now part of our community, and we'll have to see how they affect the other owls.
Interesting. Well, if you just joined us, you're listening to Jeanne Jackson, author of Mendonoma Sightings, which is out today in the ICO, and she comes here the 3rd Thursday of every month,
right,
and shares citizen sightings.
Citizen science and citizen science. Yes, citizen sightings. We had red-necked phalaropes. They're a shorebird that the females have the breeding plumage, which is really quite unusual. Usually it's the males that are the pretty ones. But in this case, the phalaropes, it's the female. And they are very long distance travelers. And they were seen on the pond at the Sea Ranch and in the river, Wallala River. And some of our photographers are on Bolander, and Craig and others photographed them. and they go all the way up to the Arctic Circle. So it's really beautiful to see. And they have a technique to bring food up from underwater. They spin like little tops on the surface of the water, and the spinning motion brings little invertebrates up.
Oh, how
I
interesting.
know. So it's like using their body as a tool.
Amazing.
So, Carolyn, Andre, and Barry Richmond had the jailbreak of the Sea Ranch sheep. This is always fun when this happens. There's a flock of sheep and some goats on the Sea Ranch that munch down all the grasses. It's a very benign way to control the grass and make it safe from fires. But every now and then they break their enclosures and go out for an adventure. And their adventure was to go by Carolyn and Barry's land. And Carolyn had been planning on harvesting some miner's lettuce for a salad. Think again, Carolyn, those sheep have good taste too. And they just mowed it right down. She got a really cute photo of one of the sheep looking in as if it wanted to come in. And that's how she captioned it. May I come in, please? Just another little fun thing that goes on the Sea Ranch. I wanted to tell your listeners that the first gray fox kits have been seen, and they are so cute. They just warm your heart to see them. And there was one fellow I was sent. I'm not on the Sea Ranch listserv, but I often get sent the communications by other sea ranchers. They want me to know what's going on. And there is a Facebook page that I'm on for sea ranchers. And this one man posted, "How do I get rid of a fox family?" And we're like saying, why would you want to?
Why?
Why would you want to? They're not going to harm you. And they're just going to give you all kinds of pleasure in seeing them. And they will leave. They will leave. But I would give anything to have a gray fox family under my deck. I put a little sign out.
Fox is welcome. What about possums?
We have them, but they're pretty rare.
No.
You know, one year Sue Susula got a photo of one at the art center, but I don't get many sightings of them.
I just thought of that because I know someone from Santa Rosa who has possums in their yard, and I just thought they'd be out here.
Yeah, I get the sense that they're a little bit more inland, but
maybe they like it drier, or
maybe they like it drier,
salt or something.
Yeah,
I don't know.
And the same like with porcupines. That's a really extremely rare sighting here. We had a bear sighting. You talked about Mark Gross.
Oh yeah.
Do you know how to pronounce his partner's last name? Billy Oxalogan?
I don't know.
Oxalogan. They sent me their video camera footage of a black bear that visited their driveway area. And I believe it was a young black bear. It wasn't that big. And what was fascinating, though, was to watch it as curiosity, because there was did you watch the video?
Oh, of course. Sure. Yeah.
I will post it on my blog soon. I promise. I meant to do that before now. It shows the bear go up on its hind legs and look over a fence.
And it goes up to they have a statue of a fox or something. It was very gentle and delicate.
It was gentle.
Bears are not known for being gentle and delicate, but it was, who knows, a year old.
Yeah, I think it was exploring, and it just seemed curious. And
his dog slept through it all.
Great guard dog.
You know, speaking of that, our neighbor Pat Maxwell, you know Pat,
I do.
She was writing to me the other night, and she was asking me, she said, "Are your dogs sensing anything?" Her dog Riley was very upset, running the fence, crying and shaking. And so she brought Riley in, and we said, "Well, that sounds like a cat, a big cat." You know, because they where we live, Jeannie and I live across the canyon, and of course there's another canyon on the other side of that.
That's pretty wild.
Yeah, it's wild out there. So we think that it was more than likely a big cat,
a mountain lion.
Yep. They are around, and we like to remind us, particularly you newcomers, and with small dogs and small cats, that you really don't want to let them out alone at night.
No, you don't. We have mountain lions that live here. And it's the same with the black bears. We don't have a lot of black bears, or we don't have a lot of mountain lions, but they have big territories. And our job is to learn to live with the wildlife that was here before us. And we're supposed to be the smart ones. So with a black bear, you make a black bear a problem if you actually lure it with food. And when I say lure, I don't mean like people feeding the ravens. It's like if you have a garbage can that you don't secure outside, or you have a freezer that you put on your back porch. If a bear finds food, they have a memory for that food, they will not forget, and they'll come back.
Mhm.
So my neighbors years ago, Virginia and Doug Ringstrom, had their garbage cans in an enclosure, but it wasn't secure from a black bear. And the black bear got in it several, maybe 3 times, just made a tremendous mess and broke the wire and all that. Well, they had an old pump house and they put their garbage bins in there. Problem solved.
There you go.
And
Well, that's right. They're very, very strong, and they are herbaceous. They're not really going to hurt your pets unless the pets make a nuisance. Did you see the video that was out a couple of weeks ago? Some young woman, I don't know, Southern California, somewhere, a brick fence, and there was a mama bear and 2 cubs walking along the top of the fence. And she had dogs, pet dogs in the yard, and the little dogs were yapping at the bear, and the larger dog was jumping at the bear, and the bear was swiping. All of a sudden, you see this young figure come zooming out of the house, pushes the bear off the fence. The bear doesn't even know what happened. Just suddenly, don't do that.
No, don't do that.
Don't
A
do
mama
that.
with her cubs, that's when you get in trouble. You don't want to be involved with
And her
that.
poor neighbor suddenly having a bear in their
Well,
yard.
she made the news all over the world, that young lady.
Yeah, she did.
I don't recommend that. Mountain lions can be dangerous, but they actually are afraid of us. They're afraid of the human voice, and there's been studies about that. So if you're worried, you're in the woods, well, talk and sing and make noise, and the mountain lions will normally just leave you alone. They'll turn away.
And I don't want to belabor this, but one thing that we do, and you probably do too, is if it's night and your animal needs out, sniff the air first. It's very simple. Just sniff the air, because you'll know. I mean, deer have a certain smell. We might not know the exact smell of a bear or mountain lion, but you know that something wild is out there.
That's a great
It's very
piece of
simple.
advice. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that.
Oh,
great.
well,
I just learned something new.
there
Sniff.
you go.
Sniff. And the bears also are going to be finding ripe huckleberries soon. It seems like the huckleberries are going to ripen up early.
Really?
Yeah, I had Gretchen, Gretchen Carlson, who lives a little north of us, showed me her huckleberry bushes, and they were already ripening. Some of them were ripening up.
Yay!
So I usually, rule of thumb, think August, September, October, and fall. But it'll be good for wildlife because there's many other creatures that feast on those berries than us. And we have a lot of huckleberries, and they look loaded this year, at least the ones that I'm watching on my property.
We haven't seen them. We have to look again.
So I don't know, why it would be with such a low rain year and being in a drought, but plants do react, and trees, they do react differently to the conditions. So it's just interesting to notice what's going on. But it would be good news for the birds and for the bears too, and us. I wanted to tell you that Mercanaster found 3 species of coral root. It's a type of orchid, and they're a parasitic plant where they need another source of nutrition. But she went to, I believe, Salt Point Park or Cruise Rhododendron down in that area, and she found spotted and Pacific, which is also called Mertens, and the yellow, which is really rare. Red Clintonias, one of my favorite wildflowers in the lily family, had a fabulous year this year. Just beautiful blooms. I was listening to a friend talk about hiking at the Point Arena Stornetta Lands, and she was looking for coast lilies. And she found a coast lily. The coast lilies need moisture, and they don't bloom for very long. So it's a real treat to see them. And she found one, and then she went down the trail, and she turned around and looked back, and behind a bush, she found over a dozen.
Oh, wow.
So her comment was, this was Mary Highville, was make sure you look in the other direction now and then. And so I was going down to Santa Rosa soon after she told me about finding them. And there's a spot on Highway 1 on the east side at Salt Point where there is a colony of these coast lilies, and they're trumpet-like flowers. They're orange red. And the closest mile marker, it's easy to remember, 3883, because you just flip the numbers. That's where I saw them in full bloom.
3883. Thank you for that.
Yeah, it's in the shade on the east side of the highway. So kind of a rare wildflower. It's endemic to our area, found nowhere else in the world. So it's very special. So I told you about that. stream orchids. This is a flower I have not found. It's like birders. I'll have a bird that they don't have for their list.
Mhm.
This is a wildflower I don't have for my mental list. And these stream orchids are found along our streams. They're found a little bit more inland. Maybe they have possums there. I don't know. But Karen Wilkinson found them upstream from the hot spot. This is a area on Sea Ranch. It's not a public spot, but a lot of people know where it is. And she found them upstream from the hot spot. So she believes that they'll be blooming in that area soon. So if you do visit the river on this very warm spell we're having now, look out for these beautiful flowers. And I read that they're also called chatterbox flowers because the flowers are hinged. So when a breeze hits them, they look like they're chattering.
Oh, how funny.
Isn't that cute?
Very cute.
Amy Rugg was really happy to find the elusive gnome plant. And this is a parasitic plant that is often found under the duff. So it's fun to see it. They look like pink cones. And as they bloom, they have little yellow blossoms in the middle of each segment. And this year, I have them on our property, but only one came up this year. It seems like it was negatively affected by the drought. But the one that came up bloomed, and I had Craig Tooley over to photograph it. So it's fun to see. And then the other rare plant that's up, and you have it on your screen, are the sugar sticks. And this is a beautiful plant that grows in, I believe it has a relationship with the matsutake fungus, because it grows on our neighbor's property and our property. And both of these two properties have matsutakes, both have sugar sticks. And both have a very rare plant called the small ground cone. So there's a lot going on the soil, under the soil on this rocky hillside that we live on.
Cool.
Yeah. And it's funny, I had Craig over last weekend to photograph the sugar sticks that I had found, and they were a little dried out. And I thought to myself, it takes time, to set up. And it's not like taking a picture of you and me. It's going to take 10 minutes for him to get everything right. And I told myself, just look around. And I was on our neighbor's property, and I found a fresh group, and that's what this picture shows. I was so happy. My brother-in-law says I'm hurting my arm from patting myself on the back, but I was proud of myself for finding it. I could write something for Mark Gross. I was prideful. I was prideful of finding this.
Prideful.
It was under a huckleberry bush in the shade.
I don't know if this shows if I do this. No, I don't think it shows.
Okay.
I don't know. We'll figure this out. We're learning as we go along here.
Well, they come up, they're tall stalks, and this one that I found is a particularly big one. And they're quite jewel-like. Isn't it gorgeous?
Interesting. That's very
so
pretty.
I don't know if your viewers on YouTube can see it or not, but
yeah, I don't know if they can either.
The small ones on the left coming up, they're pink, and they have little white curly cues that come off of them. And as they mature, the maroon comes in. And when you get close-ups, it's just like they're jewels. They're just living jewels.
They kind of remind me of, just in shape, of the we call them Pride of Madeiras. I can't think of what they're called.
That's Pride of Madeira. Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of shape, a stocky shape with the little.
Well, these are much smaller than the blooms of the Pride. But
what are they, about 6 inches or?
But this one here was a particularly big one. It was about 10 inches tall.
Beautiful.
And the ones that are just coming up are about an inch, maybe 2 inches. So I'll be watching them daily. And this is the property that Rick and I have walked for years, our part-time neighbors. And we get to, over the years, to the privilege of learning this property. And it's just wonderful.
Okay, Jeannie, oh my God, Jeannie, you've got 30 seconds.
Oh, no. I wanted to tell you that the Sonoma County put in a fence on the Wallala River, a gate at Halp Creek. And I wanted to tell you that Peter Bay went to take a look at what was going on. This is a tributary of the Wallala River. And it's a place where a lot of off-road vehicles have driven across the river in years. And he checked it out, and he said, this is steelhead spawning reach of the river. It's important for the steelhead. He said, for the first time in 20 years, there's no four-wheel vehicle tracks through the bars and the riffles and the pool crossings. He found steelhead fry and fingerlings, newly emerged Wallala roach. It's an endemic minnow that's only found in this river. He found yellow-legged frogs and an undisturbed spotted sandpiper nest.
Wow, Jeannie, you're going to have to save that for next time. And we didn't even get to talk about Friends of the Guala River, which Jeannie is a part of. We are out of time. Literally, I got so engrossed listening to you as we always do, Jeannie. We have to say goodbye to Jeanne Jackson, Mendonoma Sightings, but you can, whoops, I'm sorry, Leanne, I'll let you handle this. I started to grab the mouse. And check her out, Mendonoma Sightings in today's ICO. Check out mendonoma-sightings.com on the internet, and Jeannie's books at the Four-Eyed Frog. Everything you want to know about nature in this area and more. Our good friend Jeannie. Thank you so much for being back here in person.
Good to see you in person, Peggy.
And that's it, Leanne. I'll bring up Native Calling and you can take us away. Thank you, Leanne Lindsay. Okay, no. Native America Calling.
Twice in the last 20
Whoa.
years, citizens of the Northwestern Band of the Shoshone Nation have been cited for illegal hunting on traditional Shoshone territory in Idaho.